Hello, my name is Keriath, and it is time. It's time to start the Space Marines range review. Now, to avoid this being 8 million hours long, I'm splitting it. We're doing normal Space Marines, then we're doing Primaris Space Marines, and then we're going to cover the Horus Heresy side, which will also incorporate not just the plastic Space Marines, but also the Forge World stuff as well. So we're doing a big, massive, multi-part thing for this. Otherwise, this will be like just an absurdly long video that no one will watch. So we're doing it that way. So we're going to start with the classic, the standard Marines, the ones that I was going to say we grew up with, but of course there are many people who've joined the hobby since Primaris, have come to the fore and actually have never put together a standard Space Marine, which is somewhat terrifying, but never mind. So we're going to start off with the Command Squad. The Command Squad and the Company Command, because the sharper-eyed among you will note that these are in fact the same kit, pretty much. There's just you get a fancy-faced dude to go with all your other dudes. That's really the only difference. I mean, you might want to buy the command look at the helmet on him. Look at it. Look at this lad. Now, I'll be honest, I used to not like that helmet at all. And then just one day, I just suddenly realised, you know what? It is silly. It does look a bit weird. It also just radiates come at me energy. I don't know what it is. If you see someone with a helmet like that, you have to assume they're either insane or are going to cut you to ribbons. You don't know which it's going to be, and I think that's perfect. I honestly really like that helmet. It's grown on me to the extent that I really like it now. It looks quality. It's overall a decent model. I feel like actually the scaling on him, even though it's the same as all other standard Space Marines, for some reason I don't know if it's the pose, I don't know whether it's the kind of outstretched leg he's got there, but there's just something about him that looks like he would be really quite tall if he wasn't doing that particular movement, which sort of makes him feel bigger than he actually is. I mean, obviously, same size as all the rest, but there is just something there that kind of, I don't know, elevates him, makes him look something more than the rest of the lads in the squad. For me, this is a pretty decent kit. This is pretty cool. There's, you've got your apothecary in there, you've got your captain, you've got your company champion, you've got your standard bearer. They all look decent. They are all pretty good looking models. Obviously, some of them are more plain than others, but yeah, I think this is a decent kit. It's always struck me as having there's a nice variety of bits in there as well. Obviously, some of it's older than other bits. If I remember correctly, there was just the Command Squad, and then the Command Squad was upgraded to include him, which is why you get kind of the squad by itself on 2 sprues, and then you get that sprue, which is obviously a lot better laid out. There's a lot less wasted space on there. It's a good looking unit overall. It's a decent looking unit. I do like it quite a lot. It looks cool. Now, we're moving on from those to the Tactical Marines. And I mean, come on, the Tactical Squad is like the mainstay. It is the I wouldn't say the gold standard of Space Marine kits, because my personal favourite isn't actually the Tactical Marines, but it's properly iconic, isn't it? It still holds up. I mean, in fairness, yes, they are a bit squat. The leg to body ratio is not there. It's never been there, but we didn't mind for the longest time. No one really cared all that much that they were like the same height as Cadians. No one really was all that bothered because they're Space Marines, and Space Marines are awesome. Now that we do have Primaris, it does highlight the squat nature of them. The scaling is made more obviously wrong by the existence of the newer line. But these still look decent. There is still nothing wrong with them. They're still good-looking models. And these are what so many of us are like have kind of grown up with. Yes, this is like a more recent version of the Tactical Squad, with the introduction of Grav and stuff like that. But the design hasn't changed all that much. You know, these are incredibly, I think, pretty much the same kit, bar maybe the odd addition from when I started playing. You know, 15, 16 years ago, however long, whenever Third started, roundabout then. You know, they still look like that, and they've aged well, and they're so incredibly customizable as well. That's one of the really nice things about the Tactical Squad. You can take bits from literally every other Space Marine squad in existence and just throw them on in bits and pieces. You know, there are loads of different helmets that fit, there's loads of different shoulder pads from different kits that you can use to customize. As we know from the fact that, you know, there's individual tactical squads for like Dark Angels and for Blood Angels and for Space Wolves, they are just massively adaptable. And yeah, I still like them. I still like them a lot. They still look good. You really genuinely don't see them all that often now, though. Primaris really have done what Games Workshop wanted, which is overtaking Space Marines to a significant degree. I see pictures of people, you know, intercessor squads all the time. Very rarely see pictures of tactical squads now, which is genuinely a shame. In fact, you can tell this is one of the more recent updates to the tactical squad because it's not totally mangled on the sprue. It's not like eight separate sprues with a bunch of massive gaps in between. Relatively efficient, that one. Not bad. You do get so much stuff as well. Loads of stuff on these. It's good. It's a good kit. It's a good kit. My favourite, though, because we're going through infantry first, and I had to throw them in early because I love them. The Sternguard squad. I love this kit. It is so good. It's so good. Sculpted, if I am not mistaken, by Darren Latham. It's such a good... Oh my god. You get so many awesome pieces. So many fancy shoulder pads. The weapons are like extra ornamented. You've got the robe, so like on the armour you've got... This is like a treasure trove of awesome bits to make Space Marine characters, to make whatever you like, to make chapter masters, to make captains, to make your sergeants look extra fancy. This is just a treasure trove of brilliant Space Marine bits. And I mean, just the actual models themselves, the sculpts themselves. It's like peak Space Marine. They're over ornamented. There's purity seals all over the place. You've got the kind of bionic aspect to the helmets. You've got that kind of that very excessive amount of iconography, like on the shoulder pads and stuff. It's not so much that it makes them completely impossible to look at. Like they're not overly busy, but they are busy. But it just works so well. It works so well for the Sternguard. And the heavy weapons are quality out of this kit as well. They just, I absolutely love it. I love this kit so much. I don't know how many Sternguard veteran kits I've bought. I don't want to think about it. I really don't want to think about how many of these I've bought over the years. I think I've used that helmet, I'm pretty sure I've used that exact helmet and crest easily 6 or 7 times, and you only get one on the sprue. So I love it. It's. I think it might well be my favourite kit out of the entire range. Just such a treasure trove for awesome pieces. So good. Now, Devastator squad. Obviously, you're looking at tactical marines with a little bit of added fancy. I have to admit, the kind of extra armor on the bottom of the legs, I've never been that sure about. They look okay, but yeah, they look okay. They are still classic standard Space Marines. They still look good. They still hold up. And again, there's some nice pieces on these. The kind of munitions cherub is absolutely terrifying, as they always are. I do like that version of the that grav cannon is pretty cool. So is that helmet as well. I've bought a lot of Devastator helmets for various things, just as separate pieces. The added like lenses and kind of rangefinders and stuff on them makes them really fun for different characters and for different looks. Also, any kit that includes a servo skull is automatically quality. And it's, it is, again, nicely laid out. And there's some cool extra stuff on here. One of the things that I quite like about this kit is that you do get, like, as you can see, you've got a thunder hammer in there, you've got a lightning claw, you've got a power sword, you've got a chain sword. There's a fair number of actually kind of interesting close combat options that are included in here that you may not necessarily want to actually use on the squad, but are, they're available for other characters and stuff to use. Not a huge amount of variety when it comes to things like helmets, but the helmets that are on there all look decent. And as far as I remember, I mean, I'm just checking again. Yeah, there is a few bare head options as well. If that is your thing, if that floats your boat. Again, it's a good kit. It is a good kit. Okay, the assault squad. The assault squad I like. I like the idea of assault marines. The issue that I have with them has always been the price, which I know is like a weird sticking point to have when it comes to 40k, because the pricing is, it's all kind of based on more slot than actual like contents of the box. So, like, an assault squad costs the same as a tactical squad, essentially, but you're getting less, but then the models have got a bit more on them, and they're fast attack, they're not troops, so it kind of all evens out in the end. But I always struggled a little bit, because when the last time I bought an assault squad, they were a lot more plain. They were far more plain than they are now. There's some decent options on here now. There was not decent options when I was messing with them, admittedly. So, my view has always been a little bit tainted by that. But again, now there's so many options. There's so many cool stuff on here. Also, the inclusion of the kind of scenic element for the bases, I really like that in this kit. It's nice because it's not like flying stands. It's not like clear plastic that's holding them up. Instead, you've got them in these kind of landing, running, or taking off positions, and you get that little bit of scenic base on the sprue, which is I much prefer that way of doing it, personally. Like, having that option and making that option easy to like easily accessible is really good, and I kind of wish they'd stuck with it a bit. Okay. The Vanguard squad. The Vanguard squad is decent, but for me it lacks some of the charm of the Sternguard squad, which is I think probably a bit unfair. You can't have as much in the way of robes and flowing bits, and the jump packs, of course, kind of limit what you can do with the shoulders in many ways, but I just always felt like they needed to be just a little bit fancier. Just a little bit. Just a tiny bit. That being said, again, it's a kit with a good number of options. You don't get, if I remember correctly, like, you don't get quite as much in the way of spares off these. There is a good number of shoulder pads on there, so you can transfer them onto other stuff. And there's a really good number of storm shields on these as well. So you can meet them out to other kits and to other squads as well, which is always a nice touch. But they've just never felt quite as impactful visually as the Sternguard squad for me. That being said, it's still a nice kit. It is still a nice kit, and the models in it are still decent. Oh, I love Terminators. I've got no negative things to say about the Terminators. I have, but I don't care. This is one of those things where I know they're flawed. I'm fully aware. I'm ultra aware how flawed Terminators are as models, and I just don't care at all. I mean, I've got 21 of these Well, that's not true. That's not true. I've got 20 of these Terminators, and one in like heavily modified cataphractii armor for my Scarlord's army. And those Terminators were made with a combination of the Standard Marine Close Combat Squad, Dark Angels, and Space Wolves. They were all like kit bashed. Yeah, the arms are a bit too high. The heads jut forward a little bit too much. Some of the poses are a bit too squat, and I don't care. I just don't care. Terminators are some of the coolest units for Space Marines by far. Just effectively a walking tank. And I love it. I cannot complain about them. Even knowing the flaws, and even like, you know, looking at them for God knows how long whilst I was painting them, I still at the end of it was like, yeah, I mean, there might be issues with them, but they're still fucking class, aren't they? They're just quality. Absolutely spot on kit, awesome models. Just can't go wrong with Terminators. It's just not possible at all. Okay, similar vein, sort of. Not really. Well, just in terms of hardiness and masses of armor, I guess. That Techmarine specifically is a great model. I'm not a massive fan of a couple of the Servitors, although some of that might be down to the way they're painted. Specifically the Heavy Bolter Servitor, which you just get two of because it's the same model twice. But the Techmarine, I think this is such a good model. I mean, it is complex, it's weighty, it's chunky. The one that I painted, I did not do a great job on. Mind you, that goes for a lot of the stuff I paint, but I still loved it. It's just so... there's just so much armor going on. I love the kind of overlapping nature of the armor. And the actual tools on this model look so overly industrial and like oversized for the guy carrying them. The big old like servo harness at the back there is it's massive. It's like it's bigger than his torso. It just looks so good. So good. And speaking of massive chunks of armor, I like Centurions. I'm afraid I am one of those people. I do like the Centurions. I think I would say I like both. Both the Assault Squad and the Devastator Squad. I've only ever used Devastator Squads. I've never used an Assault Squad. But I like them. I know they are a bit divisive, but there's just something about a massive, chunky suit of armor that goes over your normal suit of armor that I don't know, it just appeals to me. I mean, it helps, of course, that they are also kitted out with an absurd amount of weaponry. Hurricane bolters in the chest. You can have heavy bolters on the arms. You can have missile launchers instead of hurricane bolters if you want. I got myself thoroughly confused there. Hurricane bolters, not storm bolters, and heavy bolters. Yeah, this is a loadout that I had. I have on my Scarlord's army missile launchers in the chest and las cannons on the arms. At a time where grav was a thing as well, but I didn't care. I love las cannons, so I went for las cannons. Plus, it just looked, to me, that looks cooler than that. Just does. Look at the size of the gun. The size of the gun's better. That's a terrible reason to outfit a squad with anything, to be honest. But I say that, it's rule of cool. Who cares? Do what you like. They just look cool. They just look good. Also, the shoulder pads I've used on so many different things. It's unreal. Centurion shoulder pads are cool shoulder pads, and you can use them for so much stuff. It's also quite a well done sprue. The scouts are getting on a bit now. I don't know. It's the faces. The faces just don't have the detail. I mean, mind you, I say I've not looked at scouts for ages. I don't have any scouts. I've never had any scouts in any of my armies. The URL is saying these guys are 2019, but the faces don't say 2019. They say way earlier than that. I feel like Games Workshop as a whole has got way better at sculpting face. Yeah, this has got to be a relist. It's not going to be an actual. Oh, the sprue hurts my soul. That is painful. That is awful. Come on, lads. Come on. You could get the whole squad on one sprue, and instead we've got this absolute nonsense. Lads. Yeah. The heads aren't great. I've just never felt them. Just never really got on with scouts. Just never really liked the look of them, unfortunately. I do prefer. I will accept the scouts with sniper rifles. I actually quite weirdly, just the normal scout squad I don't like. The ones with sniper rifles I can get behind. They look more interesting to me. They've got the cloaks. They've obviously got sniper rifles. They've got the lenses on the heads, which do a lot to give them a bit more personality and take away a bit of the potato feel. I can live with the scouts with sniper rifles. Again, though, that is so. Scout bikers, fine with the scout bike squad. Actually, quite like them. They look more. I don't know. The bikes just look a bit more reasonable in a way. I think it's because they don't have the full covering over the front wheel. They look slightly more believable to me, and the lightly armoured nature of the riders with those rebreathers over the front of the face. I really like the rebreather style stuff. Them all having exactly the same pose is naff, but yeah, as models go, I don't mind them too much. Actually, I see. Man, you know what? I'm not even sure what. Yeah, no, yeah, they are. They're less heavily. They're less armoured in a way. I think it's the side of the wheel being open on the scout bikes, and there not being as much of a kind of embossed edge to the armour. Also, they don't have that big plate at the bottom of the bike. Instead, they've just got pedals for their feet. It being a single exhaust instead of two exhausts as well keeps the back wheel exposed a bit more, makes it look a bit more reasonable. I mean, the Space Marine Bike Squad is it's a classic unit, and I've just it just doesn't look like it would work. This is one of those ones that's just never looked believable to me. It's just never looked believable at all. You know, even when I made I think it was a 5-man squad? Yeah, it would have been a 5-man command squad for my 13th company. I was doing all sorts to try and make them look like they could actually survive off-road. I was doing all kinds of stuff to them, like trying to lengthen the suspension at the front, trying to hack away bits of the exhaust at the back, remove some of the rear armour so the wheel was exposed a bit more. I really gave it me all, because they've just never looked like they'd work to me at all. I love the idea, and I love that they're a thing. I just don't like the execution. Same for the attack bike. The attack bike is just so not a thing. Look at that. I mean, just look at the ground clearance on it. It would break going over a pebble. No. It's just no way. Also, some of the ways that it was attached to the sprue. I've put together a couple of attack bikes in my time, and trying to get some of the stuff off the sprue like that. I mean, you can see the wheel on the on the sidecar there. That horrible lump that's missing out the front. It's so difficult to get the wheel off. I think it's that side wheel and one of the. I think it was the rear wheel. I always ended up digging chunks out of them because they were just attached in garbage ways. It's frustrating. It's I'm going to put my new thing together. Oh no, there's a horrible gap in it now, and bits of it not lining up. Now they've cheated us here. They've cheated us because I'll tell you where these things don't line up. They don't line up at the back. the back of the bike. And it'll be the same on the attack bike as well. In fact, actually. Right, there you go. The bike itself, firstly, the exhaust just ends in a flat thing, which is rubbish. But the back of that attack bike, not the sidecar bit, the actual bike itself, you can see where the plastic is thinner in one section than it is on the other section. So the bike comes in two halves. You place them together, you put the wheels in place first and you place the two halves together, and every single bike has that same issue where the plastic is thinner at one side than the other. So you always have this mismatched look that looks as though part of it's just been dinged off. But it's the same on every bike. Another reason to dislike them, frankly. Landspeeders, Landspeeder Storm, I really like the Landspeeder Storm. I know it's filled with Scouts, and I'm not a fan of Scouts, but I don't know what it is about it. It's like some sort of death limo. It looks cool. All the guys hanging out the side. You've got they've got the dudes on the side holding the bolters. I don't know. I think it's a really good looking unit. Don't see them very often though. In fact, I can't remember the last time I've seen one of these. Does look very good in Ravengard though. Yeah, I like the Landspeeder Storm. I think I prefer the Storm to the standard Landspeeder, if I'm honest. I don't know why. I think it just looks... I don't know. It seems to look more reasonable being longer. That's a weird sentence that I will never say again. I mean, the Landspeeder does still look okay. It does still look okay. And I'm never going to complain about the assault cannon and heavy bolter combination, because why would you complain about that? It is a weird vehicle, though. It's definitely a weird vehicle. And now we got to move on to some of the classics. The Dreadnought. What can you even... if you've got anything to complain about with the Dreadnought, then you need to get out. There is nothing to complain about with the Dreadnought. Look at it. It's a triumph. It's quality. It's so good. It's so good. Again, I hate to overuse the word iconic, but the Space Marine Dreadnought, I love it. I still love it. I know I've got a bunch of Redemptors, but the classic Dreadnoughts still look good. They've aged really well. They honestly have. Every variant of these has aged well. Obviously the Venerable isn't quite as old as like the standard, but because there are aspects of the Venerable that some of it's better than others. Like that loadout with that sort of head, I much prefer. There's a couple of different chest options you can have. That is the one I like the least. It looks too close to just the standard Dreadnought for me, that. If you look at them both head on, that doesn't really say Venerable to me. It just looks slightly more fancy, whereas that is different enough that I think it has a different impact. But you do get a bunch of different options for customizing. You can do a really nice mix of things. Let me see. There we go. So you can see down the right hand side there, you've got a bunch of different plates to go on the sides. If you do like that, the more traditional front to it, there are two different options for it. One of which does look a lot fancier than the other, admittedly. But I have to admit, I've always preferred that sort of version. Well, specifically that version. That's the best one for my money. Does look great though. Now, Ironclads, I need to get some. I've always liked Ironclads, but I've just never got around to buying one for some reason. I'm not sure what. Well, it's because I've been buying every other Dreadnought in existence, mostly Forge World ones recently. But the Ironclad Dreadnought is a really, I don't know, it's just looks so industrial. I don't know what it looks more like brutal than the normal one. It's still all flat panels and stuff, but the standard Dreadnought has got those kind of curved armor around the shins. So the Ironclad, it's got like this segmented metal plating, and even the armor around the shins is like angular and jagged. It is a really cool looking Dreadnought. It's so good. The weapons just look so much beefier and meaner. I mean, look at the size. Look at it. You don't want to get punched by that. It would take your everything out of your everything immediately. Love it. Love it. Absolutely no complaints about any of the Dreadnoughts. How could I? Now, the Rhino variants. Dear Lord, there's a lot of these. I think it's easy to forget how many different versions of the Rhino there are. See, I mean, obviously you've got the Rhino, you've got the Razorback, you've got the Whirlwind, you've got the Predator, you've got the Hunter, you've got the Vindicator, you've got the Stalker. And then you've got Land Raider, which is not the same thing. But this is, again, one of those units where it's so classic and it still holds up. Pain to assemble. I'll be honest, I don't like assembling these anymore. They're showing their age in the way they go together, in a weird way. Like, they don't look kind of ancient and like they'd be a bit of a pain, but they are. I mean, you can see, like, actually on this example one on the site, you can see the gaps down the back. Now, that's not bad luck on their part. It is so easy to get those gaps. I'm looking at that Vindicator that I've been doing a bit of work on, and I've got like panel gaps in this, and I've put I don't know how many Rhino chassis vehicles together over the years, too many probably, and it is genuinely hard to avoid. It's genuinely hard to avoid. You think you got it all lined up and then something slips, you don't notice, and that's it. It's game over. You've got a massive gap in the back of your vehicle. And the thing is, it happens so frequently. And because all of these are based off the same chassis, it happens to all of them. I mean, I'm willing to bet that if we spin this round, there's... Oh, no, I say that. If it's cunningly hidden. If you look on the right, one side of that is lifted. It's like lifted up and slightly out, which actually is exactly what happened to my Vindicator. So yeah, it's super common. It's super common. It's a bit frustrating, but overall, this is one of those kits where you might know the flaws, and you might be fully aware that they're going to happen, and then you'll buy it anyway because the Predator is still. It's like still a cool looking tank. It's still a cool looking tank. The Vindicator is still class. It doesn't matter. Like it actually doesn't matter to me. I know what I'm getting, and I know that there's a good chance I'll end up with an annoying gap here and there. And that with this particular, with any of these kits that are based on the Rhino, there is a significant chance of that happening. And it doesn't matter because I'll still buy it. Because it's just classic. It's classic and it holds up. It's the Space Marine vehicle. I can't help but love it, even if it is frustrating. Now, I will say that the Stalker and the Hunter are both kind of... these are both variants that I'm not massively familiar with. I've never had either of these. I do like the kind of extensive modifications to it. What looks like the kind of like the extra armor plating and stuff to the side. You've got those kind of stabilizing rods that don't quite meet the floor. And I do like the armaments on them. They're an interesting. I think they're like an interesting variant of this chassis, of like this platform. Now onto the Land Raider variants. All three of them. So you've got the standard Land Raider, you've got the Crusader, and you got the Redeemer. Obviously, standard is a classic, absolute classic. The Land Raider is still a great looking vehicle. I'll have nothing said about my precious Land Raider. I think it more than holds up. I would have been more than happy if the Primaris version of if the Repulsor had just turned out to be a bigger Land Raider. I would have been totally okay with it. Also, if you're playing me and you play Primaris or you play Space Marines and you want to put Intercessors or something into a Land Raider, go for it. It's ridiculous that they can't fit, because they can fit. That is a model ruling designed to sell things and not an actual in-universe rule that should be paid any attention whatsoever. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, I love the Land Raider, and I do like the Crusader. Don't get me wrong, the Crusader is a fun variant of it. Having the 2 assault cannons on the front is a fun change from the heavy bolter, and the Hurricane bolters are kind of scary. But for me, the variant that I like the most is the Redeemer. I just love the Redeemer. Just the amount of fire. that's the best thing about it. I'll also say that both the Crusader and Redeemer put the. Well, I say that. For me personally, there is a correct and incorrect placement for the sponsons on a Land Raider. That is the incorrect placement. And that is the correct placement. Because having the hatches open into the path of your own weaponry has always struck me as being not the best idea. Maybe don't do that. Perhaps don't place it so that, if the guns are facing forwards, you can't leave the vehicle. Always felt like you should put them on the forward sponsons every single time. Admittedly, Games Workshop can't seem to make their mind up because, as we just saw, they're at the back there, and then for this, they're on the front there. So, really, it's totally up to you, but I always put them on the front. Always stick them in that front hatch. Storm Talon, and I've suddenly forgotten the name of the other one. The Storm Talon, and then there's that one. I don't know. I just don't know what to make of these. I don't think I've ever really been a particularly big fan. They just look weird to me. They look too small. Too kind of... I don't even know how to put it into words. Just random crap's been stuck on them in terms of weapons and stuff. It feels like the placement of everything is weird and wrong. The wings look too small to support it in any way, and they're also backwards. It does have those little jets on the bottom and to the side to keep it aloft, which, okay, that's fine, but I feel like just bigger wings would probably have helped. The cockpit being forward but so low down, it looks like it wants to be some sort of attack helicopter, but it isn't. But it also sort of is. I've just never got along with it. I've never got along with the Storm Talon. The other one, the Interceptor variant, I've never had as much of a problem with. It's still got a similar issue in a way, which I think has come from having to use the same parts, where it just feels like weapons are just stuck on bits. It looks a little bit more reasonable, kind of, in terms of being flight worthy, although not by much. It's now lost the kind of upwards force of some of the jets on the back. The wings still don't seem like they would do an awful lot. I do like the armoured canopy on this one. That's a nice addition. It looks a little bit more reasonable. A little bit more believable, but not by much. I mean, that is a downside to pretty much, just aircraft as a whole when it comes to Space Marines. And nothing encapsulates it more than the Storm Raven gunship, which is just ludicrous. It just doesn't look even remotely capable of flight. Again, yes, it has got engines pointing down, which, fine. But it is like a crushed Thunderhawk that looks even less airworthy to me. I don't know. I've never got on with it. Just never got on with it. It just looks weird. Weird and slow and lumbering, and like it would be better off if you put it on tracks than if it flew through the air. Yeah, just some of them I just don't like. The drop pod, the classic drop pod. is, I mean, it's just a drop pod. It's nothing exciting. Awful to put together. Horrendous. I hate assembling these. I assembled one, made an absolute, like, dog's dinner of it. I ended up giving it to a friend because they needed a drop pod. They didn't want to put one together, and they were happy to have one that looked awful. Bought another one, mangled that one too, and then for the other one that I needed, I just bought it second hand because I was like, well, even if it looks bad, it's still probably going to look better than I would have done. And it didn't look great, and it did still look better. I just haven't got on with the kit at all. In terms of an actual model, it looks fine. You know, it's a drop pod. They're not massively exciting. They look fine. Now we're going on to characters here, and we're going to go through some of the more classic kind of single models, starting with the Chaplain with skull helmet. The skull helmet is a little too much on this one because it doesn't look like you'd be able to fit an actual human head in there. The actual like haft of the croziers is too thick by far. It looks like you can barely hold on to it. Other than that, it is a cool model. Other than that, it's decent. The decoration on the legs, the kind of parchment wrap around, the large book that's chained shut, I really like those elements of it. It's just the odd bit that doesn't quite work for me. The Chaplain with Power Fist and Crozier is a quality model. I love this one. I really like it. The pose is amazing. Same issue with the Croziers, to be fair. The haft is way too thick. Although that, I think, is down to... These are both resin models. They're both getting on quite a bit. So, oh, what is this conversion someone's done? That's cool. That's some nice work. Yeah, I just like the come at me, bro stance that this one's got. Bit of Reaver about the face there. Maybe part of the inspiration for that. Who knows? The Space Marine Captain Lord Executioner is a quality model, and I will not have a bad word said against it. He looks awesome. He's got a massive power axe. The jump pack is fancy. Got a bit of script on there. The weird spiky chain around one thigh is questionable, but sure. Replace that with one of the Sternguard helmets, and you've got a like just a quality looking character there. In fairness, even his head's not bad. I would say that his head's actually pretty decent. It is an awesome model though. The Space Marine Librarian, I do like. Despite the there's something about the big fat baby cherub with the shield and sword that I just don't feel it. The rest of the model's fine. It's just that cherub is ultra weird. There are some nice details, a lot of book action going on. The way the chain is attached into some of the vents on the power pack is a bit weird, but it's like, where do they actually go? Do they go all the way in? Are they just attached to them, like riveted in there? It's hard to tell. It is a good model. I will say they've really done a good job with the head on this one. That's some nicely done, well detailed work on the face. The Space Marine Captain remains a quality model. It's the crest is well over the top, massive cloak, classic back banner. It's good. It is a good model. I don't think there's much in the way of options for this guy, if I remember correctly. Yeah, you're stuck with what you were. Pretty stuck when it comes to what to equip him with, but it does look cool. The Librarian and Terminator armor. This one is actually one of the better Terminators in terms of anatomy. This particular one. The one arm, the left arm, looks too high, but the right arm looks just right. Which I put that down to kind of the tilt on the arm moves the shoulders, the shoulder pads back, which actually shows where the joint is supposed to be, which works really well for this model. It gives him the right sort of look. Looks more anatomically correct. And the fact you get the option of having a bit of freaky hand action for him as well is a nice touch. And the giant book on his back is awesome. I always love that. Just bad if you get the shoulders shot. So this is the Techmarine, essentially just without the servitors, but I don't know if you get the other head with this guy. I can never remember. But it shows off the bare head option, which I actually really like for this one. That is a cool head. It being half bionic looks really good. The Space Marine Terminator Chaplain is classic. I think this is one of the best Space Marine sculpts, easily. The head looks really good. The skull looks a bit bigger than on the normal one. The Crozius haft is a bit more sensibly sized. You know, like the parchment's attached to the back, and that kind of piece of paper chained to the top of the armour looks really, really good. Again, the paper draped down the front and the incense sensor on there, it looks awesome. It's a really, really good model, really good sculpt. I need to get another one. I'm going to get another one. Space Marine Commander, if I remember correctly, there's a couple of different options for this guy. He's got some nice options on him. Not quite as imposing as the Space Marine Captain, but you can do more with the kit. I'm sure he's got like a power sword and a fit. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, you've got a few more weapons and a few more options in terms of weapons for this one, which is nice and adaptable. Any kit that's got a bunch of options, I'm gonna be happy about. More choices, always good. Now, the Chaplain with Jump Pack, I think this has aged pretty well. I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of recreation of this. Unlikely though that is to happen. The kind of chain motif that's going on with it looks good. The Crozius is cool, with the skull underneath the eagle that's also a skull. You gotta have skulls. It's a Chaplain. Again, it's got that same face from the other one that looks a bit Reaver-esque in a way. The Space Marine Masters of the Chapter, they're getting on a bit now. They are getting on a bit, but there are some cool weapons in here at the very least. So whilst the heads I think are starting to show their age, and these pictures aren't great because the colours are a bit naff on whatever the camera was that they used. I think some of them are starting to show their age a bit. That guy with the Thunderhammer actually isn't too bad, in fairness to him. But the other one is definitely looking a bit worse for wear now. There's some cool modifications to the armour. The fact he's in Mark III, isn't he, on the right? The weapons, though, I really like. The weapons look really good. There's the heavily kind of purity sealed Stormbolter over there. Not even a Stormbolter. He's just got a scope and he's got a magazine of some... Oh, that's interesting. I've never really noticed that. I always thought that was a Stormbolter, but it's not. But yeah, his shield looks great. The axe looks really good. The bolter that he's carrying is really cool. That is one of the most awesome thunder hammers in the range, and it's impossible to do anything with because it's moulded into his shoulder pad, which is a pain in the backside. But there you go. They look okay. They're definitely getting on it. Definitely a bit of a relic at this point. And finally, the Thunderfire cannon, which I never used to like the look of all that much, but it's one of those ones that's kind of grown on me a bit. It looks pretty cool. It's different, pretty different, but the variant of the Techmarine that comes with it is also cool because it's so heavily customized. You know, he's got like the 4 shells in one of the claws, and the top 2 are weapons as opposed to holding stuff. I like that there is a dedicated model for it, that it it properly reflects what he's actually doing. Let's go back to my favourites, the Sternguard. So that is the first part of a Range review for the Space Marines. We've covered the standard Space Marines. That was 50 minutes, pretty much. Dear Lord, that is why we're going to do this in a couple of parts, because otherwise this would be like 2 hours long. Maybe even 3, because there's a lot of stuff in the Horus Heresy range, isn't there? Oh, man. So, what is your favourite kit out of the older ones? Which one is your go-to? What have you done to change the bikes, if anything? Do you have a problem with the bikes like I do, or are you fine with them? What is your absolute all-time favourite out of all the standard Space Marine kits? Let me know in the comments down below. Meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like. Don't click it if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use to support the channel if you would like. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.